Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boom Bust channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host Terry, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about Ben Johnson. Probably not in the way you expect. You might be coming here thinking it's a deep dive and, all this analysis of the year. Not really. I'm going to just kind of be talking about coaching in general. We will focus in on Ben Johnson in the game to start with, and then we'll talk a little bit about the year. Just because for everyone that's a returner, this is one of my favorite subjects to talk about, just coaching and like what actually happens and what it actually looks like, because we get so much from the sports media world and the people that dominate the content that is completely either wrong or just completely generalizes or ignores what actually happens. And so with football, you always get people saying coaching matters the most for football, blah, blah, but they have no idea how to talk about it. And now we're sitting here with, I think, 10 coaching changes about to happen. And so once again, I think because that's dominating the news, is highlighting how very little these people actually either know or actually talk about coaching. And so, we're going to do that. So to start off, last night, the Bears lost to the Rams, and there is a lot of conversation from Bears fans. I think mostly there's a lot of, hey, what a great year, I'm proud of them, which I knew was going to be the case. I already knew that. Like, you might as well call it the Commander's blueprint. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I don't necessarily have a problem with those people who are like, look at what we did this year, imagine what we're going to do next year, another year in the system, and Caleb's more mature. Like, I don't even really have a problem with that, because I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, obviously. But what I do want to say is, like, if you're being realistic with yourself, just look around the league. Like, what are you talking about? The Commanders are the number one to talk about. Burrow was hurt, and that kind of is what it is. But you look at a team like the Chiefs dominating, like, no matter what happens, dominates, and didn't make it. The Lions didn't even make the playoffs. So, like, and of course, now that we lost, everybody will be like, well, it was such a weird year. It's such a weird year. That doesn't happen often. But if we would have continued to win, people would have been like, no, man. It's a year like any other year. So that's how people play it. And again, it's a possibility for it to be either way. It's just no guarantee that things go up from here, which is why you always want to win. And it's the exact same thing with every team that loses the Super Bowl. Look what we did this year. We're going to build on this, blah, blah, blah. And they always tell you, like, the amount of teams that never make it back, like, there's no guarantee. So I'm not going to sit here and act like, yeah, that's a guarantee that things are up from here. But I'm also not going to act like it's a guarantee that it's down from here. It's the culmination of 2,000 decisions, and we'll see how that goes once, we get to that point. But anyway, talking about the game specific, the other part of the fandom is yelling about Ben Johnson and critiquing him. And I've heard a number of critiques. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to tell you every specific that people are trying to talk about, but I want to go through a few, because I won't necessarily say, well, I definitely won't say last night was just on Ben Johnson. Like, that you're doing the hot take thing. You're condensing the conversation. Obviously, last night was not about one thing. And real quick, I will say, outside of Ben Johnson, a lot of people want to keep saying that everyone dropped passes and Caleb wasn't an issue. As I said during the game and then during the recap, just to reiterate in case you didn't listen, it was a mix of both. Yes, people drop passes, and yes, technically, if you get two hands on, you're supposed to catch it, but Caleb was not consistent with his ball placement at every time. There was a lot of times where he made the catches more difficult than they should be, and that happens every game for every quarterback. So there's that. Anyway, the first thing I want to talk about is the not the fourth down, going for two. Once we scored the touchdown and was going to tie it up 17, seen a number of people last night and a number of people on TV today, online today, talking about we lost because we didn't go for two. I think that is one of the dumbest pieces of analysis that you can give. Like, I hate when people say that. I've always hated when people say that. Makes no sense. Now, I know because of analytics, the whole go for two, the whole go for fourth down thing has become a lot more socially acceptable. And really, I don't care if it is or not. But I just remember we got to a point where I would hear people just be like, well, you lost because you didn't go for two. Like, what are you talking about? Like, if you're down 2 points and you kick one, yeah, then you lost because you didn't go for two. But if you're about to tie the game, you didn't lose because you didn't go for two. Going for two meant nothing about the interception that gave the Rams the ball. Going for two meant nothing about stopping the Rams and getting the ball back after the first drive. Like what are we talking about? I shouldn't even have to explain that. So if there's somebody out there listening that has that feeling, you're wrong. There's no debate about it. You're just completely wrong. Now, you could say I feel like you should have just went for two, but to me, I almost never feel like there's a reason to go for two. I'm gonna be honest with you. Now, that's just my philosophy. We know coaches have different philosophies, but that's just mine. I almost never feel like there's a reason to go for two. Obviously, unless you need it for the score, but in a situation where you're tied, even honestly, a lot of times when you're up, like if you're up one, then yeah, okay, we would go for two, but because then really won't matter. But there's a lot of times where I don't feel like that makes sense. So especially when you are extra point away from tying the game in the playoffs, to go to overtime, there's no way I'm going for two. You get the ball, even if they score, you get the ball, so you're going to get a chance. And then of course you got the rest of the game, something might happen, whatever. But no, there's just no reason in my mind that you go for two. So that to me was the silliest one and the easiest one to discuss. Now, the fourth downs and everything. So this is a conversation or a microcosm of the conversation that I also hate having, is the just change this outcome and that, and then you change this outcome in the second quarter and then we just add that to the outcome of the game. That's not how that works. If you change something in the second quarter, then the rest of the game doesn't play out the same. So everyone's just like, hey, if you would have just did this and did that, then you would have won. Or if you would have did this and did that, and they just ignore the rest of what happened in the game. I hate that. Now, this game is a little cleaner, so I understand. But most of the time, there's turnovers. There's 3 and outs. There's, all types of stuff to consider that people ignore. But in this case, people are talking about, hey, instead of going for it on fourth down, kicking the field goal, whatever. So there was 2 instances. We were in there 32, somewhere around there. So we were pretty much right outside the red zone. We were in the green zone, as I call it, which in the NFL, most kickers, that's field goal territory. So we didn't kick the field goal. We went for it, didn't get it. The Rams then ended up punting on that drive, and then we get the ball, we go down, and we score. It was either a touchdown or field goal. I don't remember. The second time is when we go for it on the goal line after Swift gets stopped trying to run the ball to the outside. We go for it. It's incomplete, and the Rams get the ball. Rams end up punting. We get the ball back. We score. So one score was a touchdown. One score was a field goal. That doesn't really matter. It's 10 points. And people were saying, well, you kick it in both of those situations, you'll get the 6 points. So really, we got the net is more points than what we got. But also, the net doesn't change because the Rams punted both times. And the Rams punted, and also because they had, if you want to say, an extra possession, which really, if we kick the field goal, it's no difference in the amount of plays, so I wouldn't even call it an extra possession. But either way, the Rams had drives that took time off the clock, and we scored twice and they punted twice. So even if you're just looking at it in that type of result, as far as the net, nothing really changed. So, and really, it doesn't matter whether we scored or not, whether they punted or not. It's just, you can't then change what happens afterward, or act like what happens after you do that play doesn't change. So people trying to criticize like that fourth down and like, and I'm not a person that loves to go for it on fourth down. So I've said that before, and I've said that last week and probably the week before. But I was like, the times that he's going for it in fourth down, almost all of them, I would not do. And so I'm not even a fan of it. But I think people trying to blame the game on that is a little silly. You know what I mean? So, because even if that's the case, let's just say we don't score. If we go for it on fourth down, and so we go for it on fourth, we don't get it. The Rams get the ball, they punt. We get the ball, and then we punt. So instead of getting a score, we end up punting. You can't blame that on going for fourth down. That has nothing to do with that next drive. By that logic, I could say since we went for it on fourth down, that's how we scored the next time. That doesn't make any sense. So trying to contribute the play that we have afterwards to that is just as silly as saying, well, you lost because you didn't go for two. You kicked the extra point, tied the game, and that's why the rest of the game you messed up. What are you talking about? Oh, well, you went for it on fourth, you didn't get it, and so that's why you messed up later. No, it's a new play. That's just like saying, oh, you threw an interception, and so that's why the next throw you threw another interception. Like, no. What do they tell you? It's a new play. Quick memory with the quarterbacks, new play. Once you get the ball, again, new drive. Once you go into the third quarter, new half. They always say 0-0, new game. So those decisions have nothing to do with how we play. And so most of the people are making an argument about the points, and the argument doesn't even hold up because we got 10 points either way, and we didn't give up any points. So that result doesn't even hold up. The issue about why we lost, which again, as I talked about last night, a lot of it is the Rams just executed better. And that happens. It just does. And if you have never came to the conclusion when you watch football that, hey, this person just did their job better, then you just don't understand football, because that's also part of football. It's not always, hey, we messed up, or you messed up, or the coach messed up. That's how the hot takes want you to talk. That's how y'all like to talk. Who messed up? That's the first thing. Who's to blame? Sometimes you blame the other team because they did what they were supposed to do. Now, anyway, besides that part, there's a lot of different things we talk about. You know, we go to the film and there's things that we don't know. A lot of people talking about the last interception in terms of being a miscommunication, maybe a result of DJ Moore's effort. And again, if you are doing the standard PR as a team, that's something we're never going to know because they're not going to tell you the truth. But behind closed doors, they'll know, because I can watch film and tell you what's happening, but I don't know their assignments. And so I can't ever really tell you for sure what's what, which is another reason, side note, why I don't listen to PPF or PFF, Pro Football Focus. Like, to me, that's ridiculous. Like, you don't even know these people's assignments to grade if they did something wrong or not. But anyway, so things like that, that's those things are part of the game, but those are reasons that you lose. And play calling sometimes, but like I said, almost everything I see online, you don't know what you mean by play calling. Half the time they're talking about calling a run versus a pass, which isn't necessarily like play calling. I think people conflate a lot of things into play calling. Now, that could be a real thing, but that only comes with looking at the film and knowing something about the other team. Like, just sitting on your couch and watching it, it'd be hard for me to believe that you know that the play calling was bad, unless you were doing something that has repeatedly you haven't been able to execute. And that wasn't the case to me in terms of what Ben Johnson was calling. So some of the decisions, again, to go for it on fourth down, pass up field goals, even if you want to extend it to the way he was calling the game, I don't really believe that was the major factor in why we lost. In fact, most of the time that isn't the reason in why you lost, because I don't believe in the 2 to 3, 3 to 4 plays like philosophy that you hear all the time. That to me is ridiculous. It doesn't come down to 3 or 4 plays as in the rest of the plays don't matter. It comes down to 3 to 4 plays as in you did not do what you were supposed to do in the other plays, and now it comes down to this. That's why when everybody says, oh, the refs cost them the game, every time I'm going to tell you that's not true. If you don't want it to come down to the ref's flag, then don't let it come down to the ref's flag. It is that simple. If you like, hey, if we didn't get this penalty, they don't kick the field goal and win the game. My response is, if you were up 40-3 and the same thing happened, would it matter? No. So if you do your job and you execute throughout the game, early in the game especially, then it doesn't come down to those plays. So like Seattle, for example, nobody's going to sit here and say, well, them blowing out the 49ers came down to the kick return. Now, a lot of people could be like, oh yeah, that was the play that sealed it because they scored and 49ers never did. So the kick return is more important than the fact that defense continued to stop them. Like, come on. What are we talking about? So I don't believe in that 4 to 5 play thing. It's what you do throughout the game. So there's that. I think that's mostly what I heard about last night. That's my feelings. Now, I'm probably not going to go as deep into this as I was thinking I might, So I don't know. Maybe we'll do this another time. But in terms of just head coaches, and out of all the people in the world, I thought Cam Newton posed the actual poignant question that I rarely hear on sports media. And of course it comes from Cam, because Cam is just not very trained in sports media, because I don't believe sports media folks don't know this stuff. They know it's more profitable not to bring it up. But he said, when you're talking about coaching or judging a head coach, he said, what is the criteria? And of course, nobody answered. But that's always my question when it comes to really anything. Now, players, I think, is a lot easier because it's tangible. But with head coaches and stuff, I always say that. Matter of fact, every Bears fans that listen to me, you know, that's exactly what I posed to you the entire time about Ben Johnson. And not one person, you talking about 2 years of talking about getting Ben Johnson, not one person gave me an answer. Not one person gave me a real answer. So that to me is the real question. As I sit here and I see these coaches being fired, darn near every time a coach gets fired, I'm telling you how they're being scapegoated, and 9 times out of 10 is right. But what are the actual things that matter that you can judge, or you should try to evaluate when it comes to a head coach, and where does Ben Johnson fall into that? And yeah, I think this might be a bigger conversation than I want to do for now, just so this isn't super long, but we'll dive into it a little bit. See where we go. So I think probably one of the most common things we hear is losing the locker room. And that alludes to the idea of players just do not, there's no buy-in. We'll there we go. We'll use that. We'll use the business terms. There's a lot of ways you can say it, but I think the simplest way is there's no buy-in for whatever the reasons could be. Some people say they don't fear you. Some people say they don't respect you. Some people say whatever. And it can look like something. It could look like many different things. So buy-in is general, but it doesn't always explain every situation because they are different. I think much like a Dallas Cowboys, where it doesn't matter what you say or your resume or whatever. Those players know that Jerry Jones makes the decisions, not only because he's the owner, but because he's also the GM. Not only because he's the GM, because he's also very public with his opinions. And he's very public about being the decision maker. And so you don't have any empowerment. And really, if you didn't know this, a lot of companies bring in head coaches and stuff like that from sports, because all of this does go into management. All of this like falls into management, business, all that. This is reminding me of undergrad. So when you don't have any empowerment to the people that are supposed to lead, then very quickly the quote unquote followers or colleagues or players in this case and other coaches, they're only going to have a certain level of buy-in to what you are saying as a leader, because they know you're not the actual one with the power. Now, obviously every coach has, or every team has an owner, but again, it depends on how much they empower you with. And like people said, Belichick's coaches went other places trying to be Belichick, and they couldn't because they didn't have his resume. And yes, the resume, but that also equals to they didn't have the power. No matter how sought after you were as a coordinator, you don't get to a new team and say, hey, owner, what I say goes. Belichick can do that. because he has the resume. Belichick can do that because he has the trust and the goodwill built in with Robert Kraft. So when he makes a threat or when he says, hey, we're going to do it this way, that he 100% can do that. And so on and so forth. So sometimes it is that fear. Sometimes it's a respect thing. Maybe you do know the coach has that type of power where he could get rid of you and you got to be on program. But maybe he just does and say things you don't respect. He treats people differently, or he doesn't treat people with respect. He doesn't treat everybody equal. He's not the type of human that you respect or admire. So even though you fear him, you have little to no respect for him. And they might go overboard to where, okay, even though we fear you, we don't really like you. And the locker room's kind of toxic. And so now we don't really care about you. It could be that. It could be you just don't like, they just don't like you. You just kind of corny to them. And this is just kind of a job. There's no extra motivation to play for you. So it could look a lot of different ways. But I think that's the number one thing that probably comes to mind when people talk about the job of a head coach. Really being that executive. And so I guess I'll talk about Ben Johnson for a little bit on that, and then I could pick up the rest another time. Because really, I'm more interested in y'all thoughts about Ben Johnson this year. So for me, obviously, the locker room and how he's received, that's hard for me to give anything definitive because I'm not there. So just going off of what we know, I think, or what we've seen, I think number one, the wins, that validates the strong rhetoric that he came in there with. He came in there with hey, this is the program. This is how we run things. These are the expectations. This is how this is going to go. Either you get with it or you get gone. I don't care if you're Caleb. I don't care if you're a first round pick. You know that. Remember the Titans type stuff. Now, because he was so sought after, like everybody knows, Ben Johnson was the top choice for a lot of teams. They obviously know what he did to them on the Lions. He had a bit of cachet, but still, he wasn't a player that won. He's never been a head coach. He has no rings, so it was still had to be some proof in the pudding. And the wins obviously gave him, I think, that validation and that buy-in to the program. So I think having a clear vision for how you want to run the team, the type of program you want to have, a clear vision for the type of players you want to have, and kind of what core philosophies do you want the offense and supposedly the defense to run off of. I think those were things that really set him up for success. Here's how we want to practice. Here's the process of how we want to get ready for games. Here's how we play games. I think those were important. And in terms of him as a prospect, a coaching prospect, but then having those wins, I think really solidified that buy-in by the rest of the team. So then you get into tough situations, and I think people give more credit to this than I do, but people feel that we had the mental toughness to get through close situations, negative situations, adversity. And I do believe, obviously, that's a function of the coaching staff. But, that's a function of your preparation and your buy-in. But I don't think that's as important as some people might. But either way, I do think that is a bit of evidence of, hey, this team believes in what Ben Johnson is selling. And again, without knowing all the particulars, We know the chants. We see some of the post game stuff. You listen to the interviews. I do think people in the locker room really respect what he's doing, especially people that were there before. I think they respect how much of a vision he has that from the outside looking in doesn't look like he's making things up, doesn't look like, he's panicking. It looks like he is like, this is what I want to do. Now, it's the first year. If it's 7 years of this is what I want to do and it hasn't been working, some people will be like, okay, this coach is stubborn. Right now, they say he's organized. So, obviously we'll see. So there is this whole first year, I think pass that he gets. But as of right now, in terms, I won't say galvanizing like it's a rah-rah Friday Night Lights speech, but in terms of organizing the team to be ready and prepared to play, I think he did a good job of making those players feel like we're going to put you in the right position to succeed. Now, the only caveat I have to that, and again, this is with no knowledge, it does not seem like he has anything to do with the defense. And after his initial press conferences and just some of the moves he did in terms of his camp and off season, it felt like he was going to be more of a coach that is going to be involved in the whole program. And I believe I heard him say at one point that he has, I don't want to make it seem like it's Caleb's fault, but just where they were with Caleb, he had to spend a lot more time with the quarterbacks, a lot more time with the offense than he wanted to. Because he said that he wanted to be more involved all over, and he wants his OC to be doing those things. He wants his cute quarterback coach to be doing those things, but he's at a point where he's trying to develop his coaches, and what Caleb needed, they weren't able to fully give just yet. And so he said the plan was throughout the year to be less hands-on, but I don't know how much that happens. And then, of course, as a play caller, especially the type of play caller he is, I just don't see him not being dominant in the game plan for the offense. So I don't fully feel that sense of organization throughout the whole team. I think it's very evident on offense, but I can't say on defense, I can't say on special teams that the whole team feels disciplined and organized. They might be enthusiastic to play, but I can't say they all feel that organized. And I think that's important because I've said this about other coaches. I've said this about Ben this year. I think a lot of people judge head coaches off being offensive coordinators or being quarterback coaches. And that's not the job of a head coach. And even if that's not your background, Eberflus is one of them. They constantly tried to nag him for not developing Justin or Caleb. What are you talking about? What does that even mean? Everyone keeps saying that develop the quarterback. What does that even look like? Please lay out what that looks like. Eberflus is a linebackers and a defensive coordinator background. He played linebacker. What exactly do you want him to do for Justin Fields? He said very clearly, I want a ball control offense predicated on running the ball. What was he supposed to do? Was he supposed to teach the drop back to Justin Fields? And then he was he was more hands-on with Caleb than I think he even needed to be, because the defense fell off or started to slip, and he had to get more involved in that because he was too busy trying to save his job working with Caleb. Now, I know a lot of people be like, oh, you defending Eberflus. Look, this is how I feel about coaches in general. You can pick out any situation and we can have this deep conversation. My point being is we've gotten to this, pop culture discussion about football coaches in terms of them just being glorified quarterback coaches. And I think that's silly. So I say all that to say that while I do think there's a large amount of buy-in, I don't know that Ben Johnson's program is completely effective because I don't see it in all three phases of the team. And I don't care that you were OC. You didn't come here to be judged as an OC. You're a head coach now. So that's one aspect. And again, I think this would be a super long video if we got into the rest. So we'll do that in another video. But definitely go down to the comment section. Let me know what you thought about Ben Johnson in the game, what you thought about Ben Johnson this year. Share it around, get the convo started, thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.